Good morning. Welcome to the Logos Center and welcome to our home here in Fountain Hills. We're glad you could join us this morning.
With our whole family.
With the three of us.
The three of us. Baby makes three.
Well, these are challenging times. Years ago, when I wrote the book, Reflections on the Path, I wrote a closing chapter called Times of Crisis. What a prescription for times of crisis. And essentially, what the readings say is when we're in trouble, it's because, and the world, the readings say, even then, the world as a whole had lost its ideal. And the answer to that is, in whom do we trust? Do we trust in the government? Do we trust in science? Do we trust in vaccines? Or do we trust in God? And one of the sins, so-called, or the problems of humankind is idolatry. We may idolize. Our idol may be science. It may be the government. It may be a certain president. We have only one place in which we can surely trust, and that's to put our trust in God.
Right on. And this is such a difficult time for so many people, and it's getting a little worse because now we all have cabin fever. We've been inside. We have been literally inside for a month, haven't we? And everybody that we know, the same thing. We haven't seen neighbors. Nobody's really walking or doing much of anything. And this is a good time to exercise. And I'm severely allergic to a little yellow flower growing on a bush. And I haven't been able to get out in like 6 weeks because I sneeze and cough and sound like I have COVID-19. Anyway, we're delighted to be coming to you from Fountain Hills out here. It's very nice out today. And when you wake up, you forget what's happening in the world around you, and then you turn on the news, and mostly I turn it on. I've said this so many times, it's boring. I cry. Everybody cries. It's just heartbreaking to read all the stories of how many people have lost their lives and suffering and not being able to be with their loved ones at the last minutes, and it's just heartbreaking. And yes, you handed me the world.
We saw a picture of someone holding the planet and asking, where does it hurt?
It says, where does it hurt? And the planet has a little balloon and it says, everywhere. It hurts everywhere. And I can hardly even think about that without getting weepy because it's true. It's hurting. We're hurting everywhere right now. It's a real good opportunity for us to strengthen our faith and to find out what we really believe in and what we want to do with the rest of our life, because I think for the first time we really have to look at our mortality because people are just dying everywhere in every state. There's no state that's immune from that. And so keeping your faith and not getting discouraged and all, one of the ways to help is not to do what I say, not what I do, not watch the news. If I could just turn off the news, I would improve a lot. But with the news, just the constant stories about a partner dying in the hospital and the wife or husband can't get to them, and it's just really sad. This is a time where we've had an opportunity, just about everybody we talk to really think about things and what you feel strongly about, what you believe, what you want to do with the rest of your life. And so during this off time, sort of, it's a good chance to go within and meditate and to find out what it is we really want to do with the rest of our lives. Because we never know. We may only have a day, we may have 30, 40, 50 years. But to use that time the very best possible way.
Most of us in the Logos Center have the luxury of being able to stay at home and not be penalized much by it. I know many of you have jobs that you have to go to work to, but these are times in which, because we're staying home, these are times to catch up on prayer and meditation. Anne and I both find that instead of being motivated to get things done around the house, now that we have time, it's difficult for us to find the motivation in ourselves to do it. Others have commented on this problem as well.
Right.
So my suggestion and what I try to do is do at least one thing every day. And if we did that in 365 days, we'd have amazing 365 results. So whatever else you do, try to get one of the things done that you've been intending to do, that you know needs to be done, and motivate yourself to do that. And then if you need to, settle for that and get about your groping around the house.
I was thinking about Sherry Pearl, our friend in New York City. They're confined in New York City. They live right in New York City. And what they're doing with they're not able to see their grandchildren, as all of us are not able to at this time without masks on. And Sherry Pearl had written about this being a planet of impermanence. And I had never really thought of it until she said that. And this is a very impermanent planet, and everything is impermanent. And we get frustrated and angry and scared because things don't stay the same. And none of us like change, but the fact that impermanence is going to be with us forever. The moment we're born, this is so negative sounding, but the moment we're born, we start to die. And so everything in our life does not last forever. We complain because we buy something and it very shortly breaks and doesn't last forever. But that is the condition of our planet, impermanence. And we have to be...
And the condition of our souls.
Exactly, exactly.
We that believe in reincarnation, and especially working with the Casey readings, learn that an incarnation is just like a day. And so this impermanence that we experience is morning, evening, night, and another morning and another incarnation. And the Casey readings say, oh, that all would learn the continuity of life. Life goes on, and the grave is not the end. So if we get a bigger view of what we're about on the planet Earth, and that we have experiences in other dimensions and experiences again and again on the planet Earth, and this pain that we're experiencing, because we have had previous lives, we've experienced wars like the 1870s Spanish flu. We've experienced plagues. The Bible says there'll be wars and rumors of wars. And when we look at the Old Testament and see the plagues were brought on, according to that, by humankind's ignorance or rebellion against God, against the laws of love and of taking care of our neighbor and helping each other and being kind. And so the planet as a whole now has a lesson to learn. And I think part of that is, in whom do we trust?
Right. And it's not an easy time. And to know that God is with you and that you can trust in God and that no matter what happens, it's all going to be okay, gives us a sense of peace during this time. But it isn't an easy time, and especially we've talked to a lot of our friends that are dealing with illness at the same time that this virus thing is going on, other kinds of illness, diabetes, and I can't even think of all the diseases people are suffering with besides accidents. Pardon our little person here.
Bob and Mari are going to sing a wonderful song that we think is a lot of fun. They had a little talk with Jesus. Everything's going to be all right.
Yes, that's right.
And that's the spirit we have to have. He has the whole world in his hands, and we need to put our religion to work, and that is faith in knowing that God knows what he's doing, that the whole world is in his hands. And, the readings, the Bible say, he that endures to the end, and even the elect will be challenged, but it's he who endures to the end. And so we mustn't give up faith. We mustn't give up in the face of a loss of income or a loss of health or a loss of a loved one. God's going to make things all right. Have a little talk with Jesus and get a sense. In our soul's experience, God is love, and He's working with every one of us, and He's going to bring us to that point to which every soul needs.
And we need to just remember that during these more trying times. And Anne, listen to this. You need to turn off the news, because I do better when I'm not when I'm not watching very much of the news. It's so sad. I mean, it's discouraging, but it's also sad. So we would invite any of you that are watching this in these next days to drop us a line or email us or Facebook us or whatever, and let us know what you'd like to talk about, have discussed, and we will certainly try to bring some of that in. We don't want to have a regular talk or sermon. We want more like a discussion. We were talking about what Roosevelt did during the war. He had his fireside chats. So our fireplace is in the other room. We were going to do it in there and couldn't work it out. But we want to have our little fireside chats or our little bookshelf chats or whatever you call it. I have thoroughly enjoyed watching some things on the news where the reporters, you see what they're wearing, and what was it, Will Reeves came out in his shorts, and they got caught and somebody else was taking one, and he didn't have shorts on, and the mirror showed that he didn't, and that just went all over the internet. I thought that was really a cute thing. So we have these little mistakes that we make and the things that we're dealing with. Keep in touch with each other and
with us.
And with us, absolutely with us. So we know if there's anything we can do to be of any help, or just to call and talk. We would love to talk with any of you. We've talked to people during this time that we haven't seen in years. Everybody calling to check in to see, everybody okay, and talked to a friend in Hawaii recently. So people do care, and this is a time where we have a little more time where we can do the things that we haven't been doing, and it's a good time to catch up on reading. I picked up a book the other day, and I can hardly put it down. I've had the book for maybe 20 years, and I decided when I was redoing my office that I was going to have a bookshelf of about 100 books that I have wanted to read and haven't had a chance to. So I have them in this little bookcase, and then every day when I'm in my office, I just intuitively select a book. And I had a series of books about the continent Mu, or Lemuria as it's often called, and a book called The Lost Continent of Mu. And it is absolutely fascinating that there have been societies before us, and those of you that are familiar with the Casey readings know this. A lot of the stuff that is written in The Lost Continent of Mu goes right along with the Edgar Casey readings and the things that he channeled and brought through. So it's a fascinating book about a civilization that was far superior to what we have, and they had a language of symbols, and there were many phases in the Atlantean and the Lemurian periods, but they had an alphabet, they had historical records, all kinds of things, and all of that was lost in an upheaval. The Casey readings say when their experimentation done with lasers and all kinds of things.
Technology.
Yeah, technology.
Well, you see, the Lemurians, they were closer to nature and more spiritual, and the Atlanteans were more interested in science and the technology and that kind of advancement, including instruments of war or destruction. But we don't want to think of them. We want to think of us. We were the Lemurians of that time. We were the Atlanteans. And we still have all those strengths and weaknesses that we gained from those incarnations working with us now. As an Edgar Casey enthusiast, I always have to share something with you from the readings. And here's a reading that's pertinent to our time. Rather, lay up the treasures in the heart, the love, the spiritual things. For these bring the harmony and peace in the experience of the individual that may become the stay, and that upon which one may rest with, when the storms of life come about that are in the experience of all, So the idea is the storms of life are going to be in the experience of all. As we are tested, and Casey said, these are times of testing. As we're tested, we'll be tested with poverty or with super wealth, with super health or with chronic pain, with loneliness or too many people around us. The individual is tested in a different way. It's not as though we all are. But at this time, we need to say, what are the opportunities here? What are the idea from the readings is we can make of this experience a stumbling block or stepping stone. We can stumble over it because there's plenty there to stumble over, or we can say, how can I make of this experience a stepping stone toward spiritual growth? I may not increase my wealth here, but I can't extend my personal friendships, but I can make of this a stepping stone in spiritual growth. And we do that by being still, being silent, meditating. The prescription for times of crisis that I've written about is based on the 46th Psalm, and I invite you to read the 46th Psalm. That's the There is a River Psalm. The river of God keeps us dancing. The 46th Psalm says, tempests may come and trials may come, but be still and know that I am God. The prescription for times of crisis is to be centered in ourselves, to renew our faith, renew our attunement and one-ment with the Spirit of love.
This is a great time to really get in touch with listening to God and Jesus and the angels, and to get a journal out. Some of you are already doing this, and to just simply ask questions and listen for the internal guidance of the answers that you get. You'll think maybe it's your imagination at first, but if you will work with it on a consistent basis, asking questions, listening for the answer, even when you think that it's your imagination, you will find that as you reread this guidance that you get in a day or two or a week or two, it will have sometimes often good meaning that will be helpful to you. So this is a good time where we have a little more time at home to really, you say, well, I don't hear God. Well, it's just like learning to ride a bike. You have to practice till you get better and better. And if you will work with it and read the scriptures that give you a little bit of encouragement, because Jesus talked to people who were dead all through the scriptures. There's that. And we have an opportunity to communicate not only with people that are alive around us, but those that have passed on the other side, because I don't believe that it's ever God's purpose for us to be in agony and sadness over our loved ones who've died, but know that there is a way that we can communicate with them. It won't ever be the same as sitting across from them, patting them on the back, giving them a hug, but you will be able to hear them, and if you begin to start trusting that guidance and do all the techniques that are comfortable to you to prepare for listening and hearing, and it's really kind of like having an appointment with God every day.
By the way, the readings say that they on the other side need our prayers more than we need theirs. And so we especially have a list of our Logos people that over the past 30 years have transitioned, and we keep, as we call these names, encourage them, go to the light, go more to the light, more to the light. As those people that are missing from our lives come to mind, send them a prayer instead of our own grief or sense of loss. And get this sense there is a continuity between this plane and that plane. There's not that much difference. It's just that, as Casey says, they've gone through God's other door. So they're just on the other side, and we can sometimes open that door and chat directly with them, as Anne has so clearly articulated.
Well, I doubted when my son Stephen first died that I was actually hearing him, and it took me a while to get to the point where I trusted the guidance that I got. And then once I did, I began to hear him more and more clearly. And there are a number of people that I communicate with throughout the country who listen just like I do. And of course, Sherry Pearl's doing some of the best work in that realm of anyone that I know. She's getting voices. She's able to have a client connect with a loved one who's died, and it's very comforting and healing for them. I don't know, I'm sure there are other people doing that kind of research. In fact, I know that there are, but she has some of the clearest, best voices and research in that I've seen. So if you have a loved one who's died and you want to log on to the prayer registry in New York, they will pray for your loved one who died every year on the anniversary. They list their name and information about them. And so that's really very helpful. And then Sherry has taken it, of course, another step where she is able to hear them and ask questions and record the answers on her electronic voice phenomenon.
This is electronic voice recording. Anne actually was a pioneer in this back in the 70s. She and a group were making recordings and picking this up on their tape recorders. And you have to think physics. There's only one force, and this force obeys in the earth plane, it obeys the laws of physics, and it's just a matter of vibration. So it's attunement in a sense of a radio, attuning to the one with whom you would communicate. And remember the source of the still small voice in the Bible, in the Old Testament. It says God is not in the earthquake, not in the mighty storms of nature, not in the fires or destructive forces, but in the still small voice. Now, the important thing about that is it's such a humble messenger. I think of Edgar Cayce, an ordinary man, such a humble messenger. I think of dreams, just that our whole lives could be enriched by attending to dreams, but they're, people say, oh, it's only a dream. So it's a humble messenger. And rejoice in the humility of that still small voice. And Casey says, none of us have gone so far astray that we can't make an attunement with that. And he gives us a way of dealing with that by listening, having a sense, and then meditating and ask, did what I understood, is that correct or not correct? And so we keep checking about, and all of us need more and more to listen to that still small voice, because that is the voice of God within us.
And people will say, well, I don't hear anything like you do, Anne. No, we all hear all the time. We need to learn how to listen, and there's constant chatter going on in our minds and in the world around us, especially now. And we need to learn how to just keep that noise at bay and learn to listen to that still small voice. But one of the most helpful ways is to write down what you experience, the questions you ask, what you feel you heard, and then there'll come a time where you don't have any doubt that it's not your imagination, but that there's a source separate from you or part of you that is bringing through that information. And you can get some absolutely amazing information. I was thinking the other day, I was meditating actually, and I realized how many paranormal experiences that I have had, but that everybody's had. We just don't always look at them and acknowledge that we have had a spiritual experience, or that there's something out of the ordinary that we can maybe record that will help us on our journey. I have been meditating every night, and before I go to bed, I ask to meet with Jesus and talk with God and be healed while I sleep, and the whole thing. And I got guidance a few months ago to ask to meet Jesus in the healing garden. And so in my attunement with Jesus, I see myself walking up, and I make the stairs golden, walking up some golden stairs and seeing Jesus at the top of the stairs in a healing garden. He's sitting in a, what are those things that we had as kids that go back and forth? They're like swings.
A seesaw?
Not a seesaw, but they're like swings. but they go back and forth. They're not swings. I can't remember what it is. I don't think I've seen one in 40 years. But he will be sitting on one side of it, and I'll be the other. I can see him as clearly as I can see Herb right now. And when I'm in the healing garden, then I ask for specific people to be brought into the healing garden with me. So if I'm concerned about a grandchild or a child, I'll ask them to come with me to the healing garden. And one time I had you and the whole family in the healing garden. And I've had these amazingly comforting and wonderful experiences through that. And it may seem like, oh, it's just your imagination, but it's not. You know when you're talking to Jesus and he's instructing you, you know that that's not just your imagination. And maybe the imagination is the key to unlocking a lot of the things that we do.
It is.
Wasn't it Einstein that said there's nothing more important than imagination?
And Casey almost makes synonymous the imaginative forces with the Kundalini forces. And so the imaginative forces help those energies rise up within us.
Yeah.
Remember, keep a song in your heart. Casey says the music is the bridge, and he encourages everyone to keep a song. Get out your old church hymn book or some handouts that we've had at the center and get a song that you can turn to. I like Jesus songs like Jesus, Sweetest Name I Know. And the way to intercept a negative pattern of thought is to replace it with a positive thing. And the quickest way that you can replace that positively is to start singing to yourself, silently or loud, a gospel song or a spiritual song that uplifts your spirit. And remember, it's all vibration. Right under God and oneness of all force is vibration. And what singing does is it helps attune the vibrations of all the cells of the body. So there's nothing like singing to lift your spirit. And pick a song that has meant something to you spiritually. I have some from the late 40s that meant a lot to me that I bring up when I drift off into a negative train of thought. I've been
also
reading
with quotes.
Yes.
Spiritual scriptures, all kinds of quotes that really are healing and lift the spirit. Yeah.
Henry David Thoreau tells a story. Once he was going out from his place to work in the woods, and he had wrapped his lunch in a newspaper. And as he ate, he read it with great interest, and then he looked at the date, and it was 6 months old. And he was reading it as though it were contemporary or just the day or two before. And then he says, he was reading the Concord Times. And then he says, don't read the times, read the eternities. And so to get we don't just have an experience. We have an experience and an attitude about the experience. That's the stumbling block, stepping stones thing. So we have an experience. What is my attitude going to be? And I wrote an article once about attitude and emotions because that's the way a lot of the Casey readings are indexed. And attitude is something you could just assume immediately, but an emotion comes from past life's experiences. And so the attitudes that we hold may be like caves opening up a Pandora's box to a past life of plague or depression or war. And so if we have the attitude of that the Lord has the world in his hands and Jesus is preparing the way for us, then we can open up those past life emotions that we've created for ourselves that are positive. And we want to wind it up with you. I'm going to ask Anne to close with her closing thoughts and then lead us in a prayer for peace. Okay, remember we Om for attunement. Om. And I'm going to ask Anne to give us a closing prayer.
All right, please join me in prayer. God, we thank you for today. We thank you for all of our days. We know that this is a difficult time. We don't understand all the things that are happening, but we would send light and love and prayer to all of our friends and all the states and all the places that we have visited and have friendships and people that are going through exactly what we are right now. We would ask that the hand of God be upon us every day, that we make decisions that are for our highest good, that when a person comes to mind, we think to stop and pray for them, and if we feel so inclined, to contact them or call them. We thank you, God, for our lives and for the many blessings that we've had. We know that we will come out of this better off, more aware, and even more healed, many of us, for the time we've had to go within and to really look at ourselves and to see what we need to change in our lives and the things that we need to do to fulfill our soul purpose. We thank you for this opportunity to be alive at this time, as difficult as it is, to make a difference, to be a comforting word for someone, or to be there when a person is ready to make the transition. Let us be mindful of all that we can do to raise consciousness and to make the world a better place in your name. And we pray this in the name of Christ. Amen.
Amen. Namaste.
And our baby went to sleep.
We'll see you all next time.
See you next time. Thanks.
Bye.
Everything's gonna be alright. We're happy in the light, 'cause we had a little talk with Jesus, and everything's gonna be alright. Well, my troubles overtook me, and I was deep in doubt. I was trying in my own way to work my problems out. Now I find the answer, and the future looks bright, 'cause I had a little talk with Jesus, and everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. We're standing in His light, 'cause we had a little talk with Jesus, and everything's gonna be alright. I had no one to turn to, but now I found the key. It's really simple, praying on my knees. Now I see the troubles, and I see them in a different light, 'cause we had a little talk with Jesus, and everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright.